Sick. All right. Now we're recording, so we have to look professional because other people may watch this back. But I actually really enjoy working with smaller groups. In a lot of the coaching that I do, I tend to work with smaller groups as well because I find it a lot more personable. And I also find it ends up being more like a conversation with people that's really helpful, rather than being something very formal where people kind of shrink into the background a bit and don't want to speak up too much just in case because of judgment and everything else that happens. But first of all, thank you everybody for coming along. Really appreciate your time. I know it's a school night, so most of us have to get up and either go to a job in the morning or run our business in the morning. Or Ruby Scott will outlift me tomorrow morning in the gym at 5 a.m. once again, as she always does, which is always wonderful to watch. So, Rachel, when you hear me talking about the super strong girls at the gym who outlift me, Ruby's one of those. A quarter of my age and double my strength. Um, yeah, so I purposely put this on at 6:30, so we can all finish at 8 o'clock at the latest. Again, with a small group, probably less questions, but it also means that if you do have questions, you can jump in and ask whenever you would like to, which is really cool. So for those of you who don't know me or haven't met me before, my name's Adam. You've probably seen some of my Facebook page at least, if you've come along or you train with me or you're in one of my programs or you're a fellow coach. Um, so I've been working in the relationship space and the coaching and personal development space now for about 4 years full time in my business. When I very first started, I went into it and attracted a female clientele very, very quickly, working predominantly on things like boundaries and self-esteem and healing and trauma. And then sort of graduated more into the relationship space because what you find when you work with people in these kind of spaces is that most of the work that you do ends up being relationship to self, first and foremost, connecting back to our core and who we are, and then also relationships with other people. So over time, I chose to kind of change up my positioning a little bit and call myself purely a relationship coach. But in saying that, most of the work that I do is still on connection to core self. It's largely attachment-based work, whether that's healing attachment wounds from childhood or previous relationships or trauma, and also improving our relationship skills. Because, like all things, relationships are a skill. I've been in mine for 20 years in 2 weeks. We've got our 20-year wedding anniversary. We've been together for 25, and we've been through pretty much everything that a couple could go through. As you would imagine, we got together very young. I was 20 when we first met. So we've been through the ups, the downs, the dry spells, the fighting spells, the no sex spells, the lots of sex spells, the therapy stuff, the counseling stuff, the parents dying, the relocating, the jobs, the businesses, the travel for work. We've been through all of that. So when I coach, I don't just draw on education that I have, I draw on my personal experience. I draw on years and years of working in an industrial logistics type environment in leadership roles with lots and lots of human interaction with thousands and thousands of employees, but also with a lot of the study that I've done over time. So I did a 4 year coaching education with the Coaching Institute based down in Melbourne. And that's very much a professional certification with a lot of hours and assessment attached to it. I've done some trauma-based work as well. I've had my own coaches, I've had my own therapists over time. But it also draws from work from people like Richard Swartz, who very famously wrote books on attachment and parts work, and also a lot of work from Brene Brown, who is a world-renowned shame researcher on the outset, and now you probably see lots of her stuff in books on an Instagram. So, what I plan to teach you tonight is not all of my stuff. So, please don't think I'm some personal development genius who's come up with all these great frameworks. I purely take lots of things that I learn and piece it all together in a way that I think is really digestible for people and a great way to deliver the work in order to get the best results. And then I've just refined that over thousands of hours of coaching. So in my full program, this is actually a module that I would teach, whether I'm training coaches or whether I'm working with couples or individuals. This module is exactly how I would deliver it to somebody who is being coached by me or led by me in some space. Now, the reason that I chose it is because it's a really important one. You'll see that as we start to go through some of the statistics around relationships and some of the reasons Why I chose this will become really evident. And also because as a coach, I'm very much a practical based person. There is always a lot of healing work to do. There's a lot of reconnection to self. There's a lot of dealing with our parts and learning to reparent, the bits of us that feel shame and emotion and embarrassment and the parts that we hide away. But as we heal through, particularly relationship wounds, we also need to implement those things and start to put ourselves out there and learn new skills and take action in order to do that. So tonight is one of the more functional type skill sessions. Is that cool with everyone? Fantastic. Sounds great. Now, like a true professional, I have some slides prepared. Now, I hate teaching from slides. I would almost always pull this up and just draw lots and lots of stuff on it. I have a downstairs office where I do lots of standing up with a big screen. But when I'm upstairs and sitting down, I'm 6'4". So you see like my shoulder to my waist, and you see none of my bald, shiny head, which I'd much prefer you get to see all the way through the session. So I have got some slides I'm going to bounce in and out of. And also because people are very much, one, visual learners as well as auditory learners. People like to see it and think about it themselves. But there's also the added benefit is when we get to the end, if you want a copy of the slides, I can just email them out to you. So if you feel like you missed any notes or there was anything that you didn't capture, you can just have a copy of my notes. All good? Cool. Now, quick question to start off with. Who came along tonight because they are in a relationship, there is some conflict that doesn't seem to get solved, and you would like to learn some skills around that? Put your hand up. Awesome. Very good. Who came along tonight because they are a coach and they work in the relationship space and they would love to just have another framework and tool that they can use with their own clients? Fantastic. And I was going to say, who's a little bit of both? Who wants to sort of put it in their own life as well and also use it? Fantastic. Very good. Very good. I love it. I love it. Cool. So that also helps to inform me on just the way that I deliver the session and the information and examples that I go into. So let me just share my screen for a moment. Let me share this for a moment. I also think that you've all used Zoom before, right? So you know there's a chat function you can jump into. You know how to mute yourself. You know how to put your hand up if you would like my attention, or just put your hand up. It's only a small class tonight. So let me just jump into this little framework for you. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right. Can everybody see that okay? Fantastic. Now, if you would like to take notes as we go along, of course, you're always welcome to take notes. That's perfectly okay. But I really wanted to start with this metaphor because I think it encompasses this type of work really well. Let me just admit Leonie, she's just jumping in. Yeah, this metaphor encompasses the type of work, particularly in this session, really well. And that is that conflict is often like a fire alarm. What that means is that most couples react to the noise, but they don't understand what started the fire in the first place. Now, what that really means, if we bring that back into really ordinary terms, and hello, Leonie, thanks for joining. If we bring that back into ordinary terms, what that means is that when there's something going wrong, people tend to develop conflict about the thing that's happening at the time, and we call that the content. And people tend to fight in that space and argue in that space and have conflict in that space without realizing that there's actually a deeper layer underneath it that you could call the context. And here's a really great example. Now, I do ask clients in advance if I can share snippets of stories from sessions, because they're often powerful examples once they've worked through them for other people. So this is, of course, not giving away names, dates, details, or anything like that. But here's an example. I was working with a couple who had about a 4-week standing argument over the size of the TV that they were going to buy. And when I say an argument, I mean one of them slept on the couch. They threatened divorce. They were going to move out. They couldn't believe they bought this house together. There's this gap that this TV fits into, and one size fits perfectly, and the other size is going to have like 2 inches on the edge, so it's going to look awkward. And I don't want that, and this is ridiculous. And they fought their way through it. And then 2 days later, it came back up and they fought their way through it. And a couple of days later, it came back up and then they bought the TV. And then it's like, I can't believe you bought that TV. And it just went on and on and on. And it was a huge argument. We ran an entire session on solving the TV problem. So that's the fire alarm. That's what they think they're fighting over. They think they're fighting over the fire alarm. Now, you've probably already figured it's not to do with the fire alarm, right? It's not to do with the TV. Who cares about the size of a TV? Unless you're a man and your friend has a 90-inch TV and you only buy an 85-inch. That's the only time anyone cares about the size of a TV. Other than that, nobody ever does. Now, when you take that down and get beneath the surface of what's really going on, it's about one of the key things that tends to happen in deep conflict in relationships. It's not about the TV at all. It was about being heard and being acknowledged for having an opinion. So one person in the relationship says, I want this TV. The other one says, well, I actually want the smaller one. I think the big one's going to be a bit ridiculous. Then this person's like, well, I mean, I'm buying the TV. It's my money. So why can't I just buy the TV I want? And the other person's saying, well, now they're holding money over me. And I feel like they're just not listening to what I have to say. So she's then feeling unheard and like she doesn't have an opinion. And like he earns more money, therefore he has more say in the relationship on what they do. Now, of course, the TV example is one example in a cycle of arguments that couples can have. Because for other people, it's not about the TV, it's about what they do on the weekend. It's about how much time they go out with their girlfriends or go out with their mates. Or it's whose family they spend time with at Christmas. Or it's what they do with their money. Or it's where they go out to dinner. Or it's who gets to cook tonight. But a really important distinction to understand is that, and I think it's on the next slide, actually. Let's just jump into that. Let's jump into this next slide and let me just show you that because that will also frame what I'm talking about really well here. So conflict in itself is actually a healthy thing. It's perfectly okay to argue and fight in relationships. It's normal. Everybody does it. Sometimes they're explosive and people get really passionate, and sometimes they don't. But the reason I say that it's healthy is because relationships with no conflict often end in one person who's just shutting down and pulling away and giving in to the other person to keep the peace. And I know that because I've been the person who's kept the peace before through different periods of relationships. Because as a man, you feel like you don't want to be telling somebody what to do all the time. You don't want to feel controlling. You want to make sure that everybody gets to contribute. So there's definitely been times in my relationships where I've shut down what I need or not said what I wanted to say or needed to say for fear of trying to protect the other person's feelings. Now, at some stage, that starts to build micro portions of resentment and distance. And you start to think, well, maybe there's other things I can't say. And maybe when something else is important, I'm just going to soften that a little bit. And then it takes time and effort to be able to work your way through that. But when couples do have conflict that is healthy, they fight, they argue, they work it out, they get through it. That's great. It's a really good way to do it. And it doesn't even mean every time. There'll be times when couples don't solve it and don't get through it in particular. But when you do, it allows you to set boundaries with each other. It allows you to understand what the other person likes and doesn't like, where their values sit. It allows them to have their needs met. It creates closeness because you get to know the other person better, what they stand for. It allows people to self-advocate. It allows you to gain support from your partner, to negotiate outcomes, and to problem solve and move forward together. So conflict in itself is a really healthy thing when it's done well. Where people get challenged is not going to that layer that's underneath on repeated arguments that shouldn't be a thing that just never seem to solve themselves. And what you find in these instances is generally there are unresolved or underlying fears that are running the show in the background. And these might be patterns and behaviors from childhood, from your anxious or avoidant attachment style, if you sit in one of those buckets. And I mean, that could be a 4-hour training, so we're not going to go all in on that right now. But they can lead to unresolved conflict. And some of the common drivers that cause that repeated conflict without ever really solving it on a deeper level is one partner or both have a fear of rejection. Maybe they have a fear of abandonment. Maybe there's a fear of failure. Maybe there's some shame. Maybe they're scared of losing connection. Or perhaps even they're feeling unsafe in a relationship. Now, when those things happen, it prevents people from being able to say what they really say. They end up caretaking the other person's feelings. And what you end up with is you end up with two people sort of wearing a mask and bickering with each other instead of pulling those masks down, being vulnerable and working with each other heart to heart, which is where relationships need to go. Not every time because no one's perfect, but it's where relationships need to go. Does that make some sense? Is everyone pretty clear on that? Yeah, we're all on the same page. Awesome. Very good. Very good. Okay, let's move on to the next little section. So here is some of the risks of having unresolved conflict. And by the way, when I share my screen, you all appear over here now, which is why I keep looking over there because I'm looking at all your faces to make sure that I can see you okay and that everybody is on track. So according to the latest data from the ABS, in 2024, which is the latest data that I could get, there were 47,216 divorces granted in Australia, which is a hell of a lot. The median marriage length before divorce was 13.2 years,
Mhm.
which is not a huge amount of time. I mean, if you rewind back 20, 30 years, people kind of got married and stayed married forever, which is fantastic. You could also argue that, women's rights perhaps weren't as good. There wasn't as much choice and there wasn't as much financial opportunity for women to leave relationships, so they may have stayed in relationships that didn't really work. There's certainly all of that to include in there as well. But I think a really important thing to realize is that when you start to look at percentages of relationships that break up now, the typical statistic that people give is 50%, right? I'm sure you've all heard that. 50% of all relationships end in divorce. Now, in Australia, that's actually never been true. It's never quite been that high. But right now, it's about 30% of relationships end in divorce. Now, one of the key things that has actually driven that result is less people are actually getting married right now. People live at home for longer with their families to try to save money to buy houses. There is more choice out there in the world. There are younger women and men going into careers for longer and traveling and studying and building businesses before they choose to have children and settle down and have marriages. But 30% is still a huge amount of people. Population of 27 million. There's probably 20 million in the age range of marriage. It's a lot of people. Now, when it comes to divorces, there's a really interesting statistic that I took from the Gottman Institute. So, if you haven't heard of the Gottman Institute, it's one of the leading relationship institutes in the world, based out of the US. Dr. John Gottman founded it. They do a huge amount of therapy and some really advanced trainings on relationships that you can go and study. I'd highly recommend looking them up. They are absolutely fantastic. And the model I'm using tonight actually comes from their training programs. And what they found is that after a short time of observing couples during conflict, they could predict with 95% accuracy the chance of a relationship surviving. Now, just have a think about that for a moment.
Mhm.
95% accuracy just by observing the way that people fight. And when I said earlier on, the reason that I chose to do this training so I would become a parent, that's exactly why. Now, some of the key warning signs that they would see when people fought was instead of openness, there was defensiveness. Instead of understanding, there was criticism. Instead of engagement, there was withdrawal. Instead of trying to work on a problem together, there was blame and contempt.
Mhm.
And throughout the course of the argument, there was a lack of emotional repair. So, what that's telling us is that conflict is a very strong red flag in a relationship in terms of the overall health of the relationship. Because even when on the surface things look really good, if there's disrepair underneath, if there's a partner feeling that they're unheard, unseen, not understood, not respected, things can kind of still tick along for quite a while. I mean, 13.2 years, right, is the average length. Whereas in the background, you can just slowly start to disconnect. Now, I met with a gentleman just the other day for a coffee who was telling me his relationship has gone very much the same way. He's like, we've just lost our spark, and I don't even know when. And what it came down to is a lack of emotional connection in the relationship because they've just slowly drifted apart from having disagreement after disagreement and him eventually giving in and just going, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I just can't do it. So it's a really important space. Hey, Daniel, welcome, brother. Welcome, welcome,
G'day.
welcome. How are you, man?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Very good.
That's good.
All right, so we're just going to jump on to the next slide. Now, there's a reflection question for you to have a minute or so to think about at the end of this and just jot down your notes on whatever comes up for you and whatever comes to mind. Now, when conflict generally starts in a relationship, again, when I refer to conflict in relationships here, we're really talking about that dysfunctional style of conflict where you're cycling through arguments, you're fighting, you're never really resolving anything, and there's a little bit of underlying disconnection and resentment. There are two main roles, but multiple behaviors that play out beneath the surface. There is generally one person who pursues, who puts on the pressure, who gets loud, who gets angry, who wants to settle the argument, who drives it until there's a resolution, whether it's a good resolution or not. And there's usually somebody who will fight back a little bit and then eventually go quiet, shut down, give in, whatever you say, let's do that. I'm sick of this fight, and just pull away. So take a moment to think about which side of that you generally sit in on your relationship. Note it down if you'd like to note it down. That's cool. And then some of the behaviors that sit underneath that is normally one partner will push harder, the other one will shut down. One will over explain their position and try to logically make their partner believe that they are right because they did this thing. And that if you were hurt, it's tough. I didn't mean that. It's not my fault. You always say I do this. And the other person will avoid the conversation. One person will get defensive while the other person chases reassurance. Now, through all of this, what people are really looking for is emotional safety and connection. But some of these behaviors come up through our dysfunctional patterns and they overtake us and run the conversation. So if any of those stood out for you, just make a quick note and write those down in your book. And just have a think about, are you the pursuer or the withdrawer? Do you like to fight and settle it, or do you tend to pull away and just eventually go, look, whatever, I'm just sick of having this fight. Let's just get over it. And then some of the behaviors that you might have around that. And just give me a little thumbs up when you've thought about that and you're done. Cool, 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 cool. Awesome. Very, very good. All right. Man, these lights get hot. Does anybody ever work underneath these lights as well? Like these, oh my God. Try putting on lights and having like a shiny bald head. And on the day that I shave it, it's always the worst. I don't know why. Like I moisturize it and everything, but I don't know, something about these lights makes me hot. Alrighty. What I want to do now is I want to jump into the actual framework. Everyone cool with that? Very good. Now, this framework, this is the functional part of the training. So this is the tools on how you actually do this. And the framework is called the R.A.V.E.N framework. Again, you can look it up through the Gottman Institute if you want to get some more information about it. At the end, I'm also going to flick you a free training that you can use, which is really cool. I was also going to say at the start, which I didn't say, I'm not trying to sell you anything in this session either. There's nothing you can buy. This is purely a training and an educational session. So when we get to the end, don't just suddenly jump off because you think I'll do the awkward thing where I try and sell you a $7 million program that will fix all your problems in 2 days. I'm not going to do that. It's purely an information session and training for you. But I do have some free stuff to give you at the end, so hang around for that. So the framework is called the R.A.V.E.N framework. The simple steps of it are to regulate, to acknowledge, to validate, to explore, and then to negotiate an outcome. Now, the entire premise of this, and I also didn't draw that. I'm not great with art, so I've just snipped that from somewhere because it's a really, really cool image. I do draw it on my board sometimes, but I have trouble drawing the noses and they look like beaks. Rachel will know. I did this in one of our trainings and they all laughed at me. I'm definitely not your artistic coach. But this perspective shows it really well, right? There's two different ways that people can approach problems, and what people often do is they fight with each other, which is the image on the left. It's two people who have something in between them, who tend to blame, who tend to discharge their energy onto the other person,
Mm.
or they withdraw, shut down, pull away. Now, when we start to work with the under the surface work, when we start to move into deeper frameworks, we need to change our perspective on how we see our partner. As soon as we decide that our partner is the problem, we've lost the fight. Because anything from there becomes contempt and becomes blame and becomes somebody feeling judged and embarrassed and shutting down. Now, when we can say, okay, so there's an issue here with the TV. This isn't really about the TV, but look at what this is doing to us. Now, rather than you saying I'm the problem and me saying you're the problem is that we can't agree with what we're doing here and there's something deeper going on underneath. And if you and I can look at that problem together, then we can be a partnership to try to come to a resolution. And it takes away the blame. It automatically drops the defensiveness that people feel when conflict happens, when those subconscious patterns immediately come to the surface and start to run the argument for you. And it gives you some mental and emotional space to be able to really hear what's going on with your partner and really feel and hear what's going on inside of you instead of just reacting from a trigger or a strong emotion that comes up inside of you. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Everyone cool with
Totally.
that? Awesome. And again, you'll get a copy of this. You don't need to resketch that if you don't want it. I'll definitely send you a copy of it. So the R in R.A.V.E.N stands for regulate. Now, emotional regulation is just us calming our nervous system. It's getting ourselves into a mental, physical, and emotional state to be able to have a conversation rather than reacting from a trigger. When two people are dysregulated and try to solve an argument, it's always going to go badly. You're just not able to create the safe connection that you need to be able to work on something deeper. So, a couple of ways you can regulate. You can take some deep breaths. You can have a short break from each other and say, hey, we're starting that cycle again. Let's just step away. Let's come back when we're a little bit calm, when our mindset's in the right space, when we're feeling a little bit more comfortable. Let's not do it while we're feeling explosive. And you can just calm your nervous system. You can get prepared. Now, when we say regulate your nervous system or calm yourself down, it doesn't mean like stuff down all the feelings that are going on so you feel more prepared to have a fight. That's not what it's about at all. It's about shifting into that mindset perspective of we need to solve this problem between us. It's
Mhm.
not her fault. It's not his fault. It's not their fault, but we need to solve this problem between us. And regulation also doesn't mean that you're like 110/80 blood pressure, 55 beats per minute heart rate, Zen, like ready to, fall into a waterfall in Bali. Because whenever you have some conflict with your partner, you're always going to feel a little bit agitated, a little bit excited, a little bit amped up. That's normal. You never know what comes out of conflict. You never know what they might say, how you might respond. But you want to bring yourself down to a level where you're able to have a conversation and truly hear what they have to say.
Mm.
Make sense? Now, I would
Yeah.
imagine, being very functional adults, you probably all know what that state is for you. You know when you're just ready to punch on with your partner and just argue and yell and scream. And you know when you're kind of ready to maybe receive something. So I'll leave that in your hands to be able to get yourself to that state, but some deep breaths, some stepping away, some making a time to do it, and then some reframing if we have a problem between us that we need to solve. Step number two is to acknowledge what's happening. And again, once we've shifted our perspective to there's a problem in between us and we need to solve this together, this is the first sort of circuit breaker that I give couples to work on, is to recognize and insert a line that says, hey, we're doing that thing again. We're fighting over rubbish. We know this leads nowhere. We know there's something else underneath it. I can see we're both getting triggered. We're taking it out on each other. And just having that awareness and having that conversation allows you to drop your defensiveness, allows your partner to drop their defensiveness, and it allows you to create that team that looks at the problem together.
Mm.
So it's a really quick circuit breaker. Now, when I see couples do this, you see the change in the body language immediately for people. You see them relax a little bit, you see the shoulders drop a little bit, you see the tenseness leave the body a little bit, because I now no longer have to defend myself. I don't have to outthink what they're trying to say to me to get the answer right, so I can prove that I'm right here. We're going to work on this together, and it's important to me. So it brings the energy down a little bit. All good with that one?
Yeah.
Makes sense? Any questions before I move to the next on the R or the A? No, all good?
All
Cool.
good.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. The V is to validate their experience. Now, validating their experience, particularly when you're working with couples, can be a challenging thing at first. Because validate their experience, when you say that, what most people hear is that means I'm giving in. That means I'm agreeing with them. That means I'm handing over my power to the other person. But it actually doesn't. Validating just means that you can let them know that you understand why they feel that way. You can understand their perspective, whether right or wrong.
Mm.
You can get how they came to that conclusion. You can get why they might think that. You can see that they had a completely different experience than you did in the thing that you're fighting over. And it allows, again, the defensiveness to come down. When people don't feel judged, when they don't feel defensive, they have the opportunity, again, to drop that mask, speak from their heart, be vulnerable, and know that that will be accepted by the other person. So acknowledgement is really important. The E is to explore their needs. So we've regulated, we've acknowledged, we've validated, and now we want to get under the surface. And this is the step to do that. So this is where we learn how to move out of content into context. So we're fighting over this stupid TV, but what's this really about? Hey, the TV doesn't even matter, but we've been fighting about this for weeks. We've almost divorced over it. But what's this really about for you? What am I not seeing? What am I not hearing? What do you need from me right now? What has felt hurtful for you in this conversation? What has happened that I haven't picked up on? And allow your partner to be able to express themselves and listen without judgment, listen without correcting, listen without feeling the need to jump in and use your logic to correct whatever they've said. This is the step in the conversation that brings closeness. It's the opportunity for both of you to understand each other better, to understand the things that trigger your partner, to understand what they actually need from you and how to fulfill that. And it allows them, most importantly, to be seen, to be heard, and to be understood. And then the final step is to negotiate a solution. Now, all good fights need to end not just with understanding, but with actual resolution. And the resolution may not be the answer on the sides of the TV. The resolution may be, you know what? I actually didn't consider your opinion. And in future, I know that I need to do that. How can I help you feel more heard? How can I help you feel more understood when we're in conflict? So the end is negotiating a solution together. You have the opportunity to express your needs, your thoughts, your feelings, but then actually work on that as a partnership. You can spend as much time in this space as you need. It doesn't have to be solved on the spot. This doesn't have to be a let's sit down and let's work through this completely until we get to the end. It can be done in chunks. You can come back together later. But the most important thing about conflict in your relationship is to remember that you are not trying to win. Because when it comes to arguing, fighting, disagreements, there is no winning. When one of you wins, the other person loses because they feel like they lost the argument. They feel like they lost the fight. Then they're going to feel belittled. They're going to feel misunderstood, unheard, disrespected, whatever it is, or shut down and disconnected. Like, what's the point? Why do I even bother bringing anything up anymore? What's the point? All we're going to do is fight about it. She's going to get shitty. He's going to get shitty. I'm going to have to shut down and just do it anyway. I may as well just do it. And what does it matter? Which is probably the worst point to get to. So the understanding you were trying to get to there is that you are not two people against each other. You're a partnership with a problem in between you. And the goal for you is to try to protect the relationship, to try to protect the connection that you have between you so that you can resolve, so you can be heard and seen and felt and understood. Because that's what builds true emotional intimacy for people. When you can fully trust your partner, when you can be vulnerable, when you can talk to them about what's really going on for you, and when you know that they're going to be there to hear and see and understand you and support you. Does that make sense? Fantastic. Good. I got a thumbs up. Very, very good. Okay, so they're the 5 steps. Do we want to do a quick pause and recap of that? Do you have some questions that you would like to ask before we move on to the next last little bit? Because we're almost finished through it all. Has anybody got any questions? Did you want me to recap any of those? Yes, Rachel.
I've got a question about, hang on. When the person is expressing their needs or like what happens if they actually have difficulty saying or really knowing what they needed in that moment? How would you work through that with them?
Yeah, so is that you personally, or if you're working with a couple, or both?
Um, Probably both, but yeah, I think it has been with me as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Really good question. I would say that when couples first start doing this, it starts out very difficult. If they're used to being shut down, ignored, if that's their general pattern and habit, or they're not used to self-advocating, it can be a very difficult thing to start to do. So what I would say is, first of all, when you start to work on a framework like this, pick one of them and try to start to improve it. So maybe at the start, it's just let's recognize the pattern, and that's as far as we're going to get because we need to build on this and build up our skills rather than say, hey, we're having a fight. My coach, he gave me this cool framework, and we're going to go through it step by step until we get this right. It's like, let's start with one and get it right.
Yeah.
And it takes the pressure off the whole conversation. But as you get better at it step by step, you will also get better at self-advocating. You'll also be better at being able to express yourself more comfortably. So the anxiety that you feel inside starts to dissipate as you build up the practice of being heard and being understood and dropping the defensiveness and learning that the other person is on your side.
Yeah.
And they won't be all the time. Definitely not. I mean, even having a framework doesn't mean everything runs smoothly now, but it means that you have a point that you can work on together.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, then tell them you don't know. I don't actually know what it is that I need right now. I just know that either I can't continue this fight or I don't want to continue this fight, or maybe I need to go away and think about this and let's come back together this afternoon, tomorrow, over dinner, over a walk, over a coffee, whatever it is, and try and figure it out.
Yeah. That's really helpful. Thanks.
Make sense?
Yeah, it
Cool.
does. Yeah.
Was that helpful for everybody else?
Thank you, Adam. That is really amazing. And just what I got, is that okay? It's not a question, but it's
Sure.
what you just said. Now it is the most important thing that I just getting from this. It is, and this is what I do also. It is recognizing the patterns at the beginning,
Yes.
those patterns of behavior that is the cue, for us to know how we can disrupt them.
Yes. Yep. Very
Yeah.
nicely said.
And I really like it that your framework is so amazing. It's really good.
Thank you. Thank you. I would love to take full responsibility for it, but of course, it's not mine.
I know, I know,
I've
I
just
know.
massaged it nicely and delivered it in a really nice way.
You put your style, which I can
Definitely.
see it is really awesome. Very natural, very you.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Great feedback. Thank you. I very much believe in relationships that um, when we can see each other at a deeper level, we get further along
Yeah.
in all spaces. When we can truly learn to understand the other person, when we can drop away our ego, drop away our preconceived notions of what we think this person is trying to do to us. And again, in these circumstances, I should have reiterated at the start, we're talking about working with people who are good people who care about us, who want to repair relationships. We're not talking about abuse and coercive control and other things.
Oh,
No amount of nice conversation is going to win with a person like that.
mm,
So when you learn to connect deeply with another person, when you can again drop away the mask, drop away the preconceived notions, when you can fully be yourself, when you can express who you are, and when you can express those parts of you that perhaps you feel shame around, that you shut down due to embarrassment, that you think are dorky or unusual or weird, when you can fully be that person with your partner, that's where the truest amount of connection comes, when you can be seen for who you are at your core. So all of
mm,
the work that I do across everything, including this, is more about us being able to be that person and connect to that person in a space of safety with somebody else who loves us so that we get where we want to be, which is seen, heard, understood, and loved.
yeah.
All right. Now we have a little bit of a wrap up and then we're going to do some more questions. So let's just recap back to conflict is okay, conflict is normal, conflict is healthy when you resolve it and you don't turn your partner into the enemy.
Mhm.
And what it sounds like is help me understand. I can see why that hurt. We're on the same team. I don't want to fight against you. But more importantly, it creates the emotional safety. It creates trust. It creates understanding and it creates that connection during hard moments. Allows us to fully be ourselves. And then, because we have a small group and we went through that very quickly, we just have questions and next steps. Now, before we go to any more questions and next steps, first of all, Um, I'm not trying to sell you anything. There's nothing you can buy in this session, but I will shamelessly plug the fact that I have a free course that you can have for absolutely nothing. There's a QR code on the screen. You're welcome to scan that with your phone if you would like to. It's a little mini course I did about 6 months ago called Reset Your Relationship in 28 Days. It's got 4 modules: emotional regulation. It's got attachment work in it so you can figure out your attachment style. It has this framework inside it. And then it has the 12 ingredients for a fantastic relationship. Completely free, self-paced, don't need to pay anything, don't need to do anything. It's yours if you would like it. And then, of course, you can follow me on Facebook if you don't already, or you can follow me in the gym, Ruby, while I try and keep up with how strong you are. More like me following you in the gym. I did deadlift 125 today, though. You missed deadlift day. Um, so you can scan that and follow me on Facebook if you would like to. And then, of course, if you have liked this training, if this is something that you're interested in, that you would like to do some more work on, next month I'm running a 3-day training, completely free again. It is more driven around coaches who want to expand their practice and do this work. During that, I will be offering people into a paid program. So there is a pitch in that, which is cool. But I mean, of course, you don't have to do that. But it'll be a 3-day free training across a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evening. And I will be going far deeper into different segments of my program to help you to upskill yourself and the way that you relate with people, but also to give you more frameworks that you can use to work with the clients that you're working with. Now, you can come along and do that and take away some great workbooks. And again, completely free. There's nothing you need to do for it other than show up. And at the end of that, if you want to, then you can talk to me about doing some work with me in a program or one-on-one if you want some relationship work. But there's no pressure. It's just going to be a great session. I'll be marketing that one through some paid advertising. So hopefully some international visitors will be on it, which is cool. But just keep an eye on my Facebook. You'll see that advertised. I'm going away next week for my 20-year wedding anniversary to New Zealand
Oh,
for 5
awesome.
days. So when I get back on the other side of that, you'll see some heavy marketing and advertising. So either feel free to watch my Facebook or just reach out to me and I'll make sure that you get an invitation to it.
Mhm.
Beautiful. All right.
Adam, I
Yes.
didn't have the chance to take the picture of the
Oh,
QR code.
that is
Can you
very,
send it?
very rude of me. Let
No, no,
me let me share
that's
that
fine.
again.
That's fine. Thank you. Let me see. I'm a little bit slow.
No, no, that's okay. And what I'm going to do is for everybody who showed up tonight, I will email you a copy of this presentation. So you can also
Okay.
open it up on your screen and just take a photo of it on there.
Mhm.
You can print it out and give it to your partner and say, this is how we're going to fight now, which is always a
Mhm.
really fun conversation to do.
I'm going to train you.
These are our rules. My coach said that this is what you have to do now.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah,
But it's also a
yeah.
really fun and playful way to be able to introduce a new tool into your relationship, which
Mhm.
is always good. Growth is a great thing in relationships.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, totally.
All right. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Anything else that anybody wants to add?
Oh, I will spend 4 hours. This is a subject that I'm so fascinated with,
Wonderful.
and this is something that I do in my work, having the hard conversations,
Hmm.
and sometimes as you said, with those who are experiencing violence, and
Mm.
so and and at the level, if we could get our clients at the level of conflict,
Hmm.
of conflict, and teach them how to navigate that journey of, okay, this is not that's why I love this framework.
Mm.
This is not so hard. In fact, conflict, it is an opportunity all the time,
Hmm.
to remind us that we still need to learn, to navigate our relationship, that we still need to
Hmm.
grow and open the door to new wisdom. And
Hmm.
so every conflict, it will create some even closer connection, because having the opportunity to resolve it, it helps You are meaningful to me, and I'm ready to really welcome these conflicts in this space where we together will
Mm,
actually deal with them. We are not dealing with each other, fighting with each other. We
hmm.
fight for our relationship and for
Love it.
whatever is disturbing the relationship. And I truly love that. And there is a lot of work for all of us because relationships is the core
Hmm.
of survival to
It
humanity.
is. Love it. Very, very well said. And not only is it the core of survival, but connection is the antidote to depression.
Mm,
So the more we can feel connected to people, the more it staves off things like depression and anxiety and other mental health concerns, which is a really
mm,
positive thing as well.
mm, mm,
But I
mm,
also love what you said about growth in relationships, because I think there's a couple of different ways that people can grow. People
mm,
can grow because something's gone wrong and they're forced to,
mm,
which is often the way that people do it. They wait until something breaks to go, we're going to
mm.
have to do something about this. And then it's like an acute situation where they find a psychologist, a counselor, a coach, whatever method
Yeah,
they
yeah,
choose to do. Or people
yeah,
can go, you know what, I can see something starting to rumble here. Perhaps
yeah,
there's some work that we can do. And
yeah.
when you can catch it at that stage, you've got the opportunity
Mm,
to work with your partner on it rather than already getting to the point where it's too big a problem and you're already just trying to kill each other. And people just aren't open to the kind of growth that relationships need.
mm,
So I really love what you said about growth there. I think relationships are work. I think no matter how far we get through them, the work never stops. It just changes because there's
mm,
different seasons in relationships as you go along. Like I said at the start, I've experienced all of them so far, I think, and I'm sure there'll be more in the future.
mm,
And 25 years in, I'm still finding myself learning new things about myself, about my beautiful wife, about our relationship, and about what we can do better for each other. It's a
yeah.
magical space.
It is a journey because our work, it is not to get to the pinnacle, which
Mm,
is chaos. It's a journey to the point of no return. You
hmm
get first an obstacle. Continue if you don't pay attention, that
hmm
will become a challenge. You don't pay attention to the challenge, it will become a problem.
hmm
If you do not pay attention to the problem, that becomes an issue, super difficult.
Yeah.
But when you get to issue, that is chaos. And chaos only wants one thing and nothing else. It is change. No change, no peace.
Mm,
Yeah. And is we all, we just here in this journey of growth,
hmm.
experience, and evolution.
We're all perfectly flawed humans who sometimes get it right and sometimes get it horribly wrong.
Yes,
Well
we're
done.
very good at that.
Well done. We're experts. Thank you. Great share. Great share.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Anything else they want to hear, say?
I think just touching on something you said before about, not getting into these conversations or trying to use the Raven method with abuse, narcissistic people, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
I think I can only speak for women, but I think not now, but in past, it's always been hard to tell because previously was in situations like that to know when it is healthy. Like if
Mm.
you don't see anything else happening in the relationship, but then your fight style's still similar,
Hmm.
it's like hard to know, like, oh, is
Mm.
it going to go to that next level of abuse or something? If you
Hmm.
do, so I think for women, they really do find it hard to find their voice going into a fresh relationship or a new relationship, even with friends, like work situations, because of that past situation. So I don't know, I
Hmm.
just want to add that bit in because I think a lot of women could probably add, oh, even men, anyone could
Hmm.
identify that when they've been abused in the past. It's really tough
Mm,
to know when it is safe to have those conversations. So even if everything else
Absolutely.
looks healthy in the relationship. So
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I've probably done, I stopped counting at about 1,200 hours or so of coaching. So I've done plenty of it. And like I said, that first 3 years was predominantly with women, lots of empowerment work, lots of trauma work, both big T and little t trauma. So dealt with some very deep things, dealt with some more surface level kind of ordinary conditioning type traumas, I guess you would say, that we all grow up with. But what I would say is if you've experienced particularly some of the big T trauma, then navigating a hard conversation is just a very small part of the kind of work that you need to do in order to, bring yourself to a state to be able to have a healthy relationship. And that's going to mean a lot of healing work for you first and a lot of internal work for you so that you can understand the signs, you can understand what abuse is and what abuse isn't. You can learn what a healthy relationship really looks like and you can grow in that space. And then this kind of becomes an add-on on top of it. So if you're uncertain whether behaviors are normal or not, what I would say is if you're not working with a therapist or a psychologist or a coach or anybody else, what I recommend to people is find somebody you know that has a healthy, secure relationship and go to them for advice. Say, hey, look, I'm seeing this thing happen. I'm not quite sure if it's just a trigger from my past and I'm being overly sensitive, but this thing's coming up in our relationship. Like, can you just give me some feedback and some advice? Does this feel right to you? Does this not feel right to you? And try to use people who are fairly securely attached, who seem to have strong relationships, people you look up to, and that can kind of give you an idea of whether you're reacting from a trigger, whether maybe there's something going on that you haven't healed, or whether there's truly a line that's being crossed there for you.
No, thank you. That actually helps the way you put it together. That's really, really helpful. Now I know what to say when that question comes to me when I'm coaching. So thank you.
Absolutely. Always model
Mm.
someone who's got a great, secure relationship.
Yeah.
Sometimes for my clients, that relationship is mine and my wife's as well. Sometimes it's their parents, sometimes it's other people in their, friend circle who've got long-term safe relationships. And
Yeah.
then sometimes it's their therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it would be my best friend and her husband. Like they've been married 15 years and I have the utmost respect for her. I actually broke up with my abusive ex-partner on their wedding day. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. She sounds like a great friend. Yeah.
Amazing.
The best. All
Mm.
right. Great questions, everybody. Great shares. Is there anything else before we wrap up? Has anybody else got any questions? Nope. We're all good. Awesome. Thank you for coming along, everybody. Really appreciate you spending your time here with me. Thanks for the great questions and the great shares as well. I always really appreciate it. Now I've got a note of everybody who's here, of course. So I will send out an email to you from my business email address if that's okay. Just check your spam and your junk. But it'll have a copy of this presentation. Is anybody interested in a copy of this recording as well that I can also send out? You can rewatch parts of it. Awesome. So maybe what I'll do is I'll upload it privately to YouTube and then just send everybody out a link. So if you want to
That would
share
be
it with friends,
awesome.
you can also share it with friends. They'll be able to watch it if they've got the link. If you've got somebody in your life who you think could maybe use it, perhaps that's your partner. Hint, hint.
Mm.
You can always send it to them as well. But
Mm.
otherwise, I'll get those emails out to everybody tomorrow. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming along and keep an eye out for that 3-day training. And then, of course, if you need any other supports, if you've got any questions or anything else, feel free to send me a message or reach out. I'm always happy to help people out.
Thanks, Adam. You
All right.
are so
Much love,
amazing.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for very good.
Thank you. Have a great
Oh,
night. I'll see you all
you too.
soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.